Let's talk a little bit this morning about something that actually is a difficult conversation to have. This is Carmen Hudson. She is the Director of Victim Support Services with the Partnership for Families, Children, and Adults. Good to see you this morning.
Thanks for having me.
I do think this is a little bit of a delicate conversation, but I bet if you could get a group of especially women together in a room and you begin to talk about relationships in their lives where things have been less than ideal, you would find that there's a lot of commonality there. Would you agree?
Absolutely, absolutely. Especially when it comes to domestic violence and sexual assault.
So it is it's always been an issue. I think we are becoming less afraid of talking about it and addressing the issue. For 150 years now, the partnership has been there to have this walk with primarily women, but men too, who are experiencing domestic violence, but yet we don't always realize that you're there or how you work. You're very quiet and confidential in the way you help these victims.
And we're quiet because it's on purpose, because we have to maintain individuals' privacy because of safety issues. Our domestic violence shelter is confidential, and so we do that to protect them from their abusers. And so, but we want to get the word out that we do exist, the services are available. So we can make our domestic violence shelter quiet, but our services should be out in the public.
Let's talk a little bit about how you even define domestic violence. First of all, it does not have to mean that you're married. It can just be a dating relationship as well. Is that right?
Right. You could be in a dating relationship, you could be in a relationship and living with somebody, or you could be married.
Does it have to be physical domestic abuse?
No, domestic violence comes in all different forms. It could be physical, it could be sexual abuse, financial abuse, it could be emotional and psychological abuse.
Does it kind of evolve, Carmen? Does it begin sometimes with control issues that then just become out of control?
Yes, usually we see that. We call it a grooming phase. So basically what happens is an individual sees somebody else that they're interested in, and they start building on that relationship. And then little by little, they start to isolate them from their friends and family. And it's a way to be able to control them. So if they can get them away from friends and family who will protect them, then they start to exercise power over them in order to control them. And that could look in so many different ways.
Does it happen frequently where women, again, are the victim of this and they don't even recognize it because it does happen so slowly?
Absolutely. It actually happens more often than not. I'm really surprised when I start to talk to women about there's a power and control wheel, and we talk about the different methods that abusers use in order to control them. And once they start seeing that, it's like the light bulb turns on and they I didn't realize that that's what was happening.
Right.
And there's a cycle of abuse that's also occurring where they go through a honeymoon phase, and then there's an incident, and then they go back to the honeymoon phase. And so they're constantly being manipulated and controlled to the point where they're not seeing it. And it takes people, friends and family who are looking at what's going on to be able to speak up and say, hey, you might need some help.
Yeah, what do you do when that's who you are? You're the friend or family watching this happen to the person you love. How can you intervene?
It's really difficult, but I tell people, call our hotline. Because that's a good way to talk to somebody about what's going on and maybe getting some hints or ideas of how to address it with that individual. Because many times the abuser will isolate the individual, and it's hard to get to them. But being able to either call them, text them, but even then the individual has to see and want the help.
Let's show that hotline number again if we can, and we'll give it to you before we end the conversation with Carmen. But everything, again, we have to stress is confidential. So sometimes, I mean, we've heard stories like this in the past of women who find a spare moment to make a call and they're able to get away.
Yes, yes. I'll tell you about an incident that happened, and that was a woman went to her doctor's appointment. She was pregnant, and she told the doctor, hey, I'm in an abusive situation. I don't know how to get out. And they called us, and the police was able to escort her to our shelter. And so this happens, and if they know that we provide these services, they will reach out to us.
Let's talk about that shelter. Again, we can't disclose where that is for confidential reasons, but you told me that half of the people who are there are children.
Yes, because if you can imagine, most of the individuals that come to us are parents, and so they bring their children with them. So they might have 1, 2, or 3 children. And some we've had large families up to 7 children in our shelters. So yeah, the majority of the people in our shelter are children.
You know, you must, when they come your way, just celebrate their bravery. It is not easy to make that decision to leave. It sounds like it would be, but not if you're the one trapped in it.
It takes a lot of courage to make that first phone call. It's so difficult to be able to get out of that cycle of abuse. And so when they make that first phone call, it's important for us to be able to be on point. We're there 24/7. They can call us anytime, and then be able to walk them through that. And sometimes it takes 2 or 3 calls before they're actually there. But we do work with them on a safety plan, because one of the most dangerous times for individuals is 18 months after they leave. Because remember, domestic violence is all about power and control, and so when they're leaving, that is when the abuser is losing control. And so that's when we see stalking, murder-suicides, unfortunately. So this is the time for us to really create a safety plan to keep them safe.
Maybe you can come back and we can talk about that in more detail.
Sure.
In the meantime, here's where you can reach out to them. It's the Partnership for Families, Children, and Adults. They're on Brainerd Road. There's that hotline number again if you need them right now. You can also text them online. It's partnershipfca.com. Thank you. Thank you.
Wholesale Supply is your one-stop shop